Well, good morning, and thank you for letting me sit in for John Fredericks today. This is really the John Fredericks Radio Show, but I am honored, Michael. Thank you there in Richmond in the studio for introducing John Gordon Truth. We're on every Saturday and Sunday from noon to 2 o'clock on the John Fredericks Radio Network, as well as live streamed across the World Wide Web and on other platforms. Let's get to the news of the day. Donald Trump is going to Davos. It's being held in Switzerland right now. It's an annual event. I didn't realize Davos has been going on for over 50 years. It's where all the world's billionaires choose to congregate and decide how the world is going to be run according to their vision. There's no democracy in Davos. It's just a bunch of self-important people with a lot of power, basically because of monetary power, but they're also world leaders and representatives of the world's leading countries that are there to collaborate. I think it's probably a good thing that they meet and talk, but I don't think it's a good thing that they set the agenda for the world. I think the people of the world should set the agenda for the world. What do you think? I'd be interested to hear from you. You can call us at 1-888-480-JOHN, and that's as in John Fredericks, not John Gordon, but hey, you know what? Fake it till you'll make it. I'll take it. 888-480-5646. Let me know what you think. Davos, are you like it or not so much? Tomorrow marks the 1-year anniversary of Donald Trump's taking the oath of office for his second term. And he had responded to a question from the Epoch Times, which, by the way, is one of my absolute favorite sources of news. They really do get it right, I think. They do tend to appear to be conservative, but what I really think they do is just tell the truth. That would be a novel concept for many of the Democrats across the country today. And so we're going to be, I'm going to talk about Trump's accomplishments in just a second, but let me just tell you, you're going to want to stay tuned today. We've got Rich McCormick coming up at the bottom of the hour, and then we've got the Georgia Peaches, Debbie Dooley and her crew, along with Jackie Hartley and Christine James will be on at the top of the next hour. And we're going to break down what's going on in Georgia. And I'm sure we will spend some time talking about what's the matter with Georgia. Trump's second term, it restored my faith in God, really, when he was reelected for a second term. There was a period that I thought we had lost. I thought we had lost the battle after 2020. I fought for and looked at the 2020 election for basically 2.5, 3 years of my life. I was pleased to have been invited to help Bob Shealy, Charles Bundern, and Preston Halliburton on a case that they brought against the Fulton Board of Elections. And so I got a front row seat. I was not a lawyer on the case. I was responsible for fundraising and communications. I traveled the state giving presentations about what happened in 2020. I was devastated. It is my belief, folks, that if we don't have a franchise, that we don't have a republic. And we lost our franchise in 2020. And much of what we were telling people back then has been proven to be true today, because now we've had the revelation that 170 of the tabulator tapes were not signed in accordance with Georgia state law. Therefore, over 300,000 votes, 320, I think is the number, were certified illegally. So that is and I'd gone around the state telling people that there were 40,000 illegal votes in Fulton County based on the evidence that we had at that time, duplicate ballots, people voting from UPS stores, homeless shelters, churches, abandoned apartment buildings, people registered to vote when sorted by first name, their registration numbers were perfectly sequential, 14,000 of those people. And then, of course, there was 2,000 mules that showed all of the ballot harvesting that took place in Georgia in 2020. Virtually everything that we've said has been validated. And the greatest validation was when Fonnie Willis, who sought to indict 19 patriots, which I thought was the lowest of the low of any public servant. If that was not lawfare and abuse of her privilege as a trusted public servant, I don't know what was. That came unraveled when, as Debbie Dooley informed me a little while ago, she affectionately refers to Nathan Wade as Fonnie Willis's boy toy. I think that's an accurate description, but we learned that Fonnie Willis and Nathan Wade traveled all over the United States. At the we assume, and I think rightfully so, that at the taxpayer funded dollars, because Fonnie Willis paid Nathan Wade $650,000. She also lied. She said that she didn't have a relationship with him until 2021. But the fact of the matter is, there is evidence that they were an item in 2019. So we can also add home wrecker to the list of descriptors for Fonnie Willis. Why she is still the DA, I don't know. I want to get into that with the Georgia Peaches a little later in the show. But let's get back to Trump's accomplishments. In the Epoch Times, he listed as his three big accomplishments: rebuilding our military. The annual expenditures now exceed $900 billion, almost $1 trillion. Not quite raising to the level of our interest payments on the $37 trillion of debt that we have, but nevertheless, the second largest line item in the federal budget. And then President Trump says that's what has enabled him to go and clean up Venezuela. Now, some people may think it has to do with fentanyl. I happen to believe that fentanyl is not part of the equation. Maybe that is an added benefit that we get. I think, and some people think that it has to do with oil. We really have enough oil in the ground in this country. We don't really need Venezuela's oil. What we need to do is reduce the regulations and make it easier to explore for new oil, and also make it easier to frack and exploit our own resources. We probably have enough oil to last for anyone listening to the broadcast lifetime this morning. But nevertheless, fentanyl, oil, those have been the rationalizations. I think it has everything to do with what we're seeing as truly a new world order that is unfolding in real time right before our very eyes. And I think many people are asleep and not realizing it. But you've got Russia that is moving in on the Ukraine. They want Ukraine for themselves. China has been making noise about annexing Taiwan for many years now. They are conducting military exercises in the oceans adjacent to Taiwan. And President Trump is saying, okay, fine, fellas, you want to be aggressive in your parts of the world? We're going to protect our flanks. Ergo, Venezuela is now under the rule of President Trump, who is acting as the temporary president. There are also rumblings that we're going to look at Colombia, and we've also imposed huge embargoes and sanctions on Cuba. The oil that flowed out of Venezuela, a lot of it was going to Cuba. That was against the sanctions. And so Cuba is really on their heels. Economically, they are in horrible shape. And so will the Cuban government collapse, and will we move in and finally have our tentacles in Cuba? So you look at it, that would give us a lot of protection to the south. Mexico's already an ally of sorts. But even in Mexico, Trump has said that if Mexico doesn't get control of the cartels, that we will. We've offered to come into Mexico and assist with our military in getting the cartels out of the country. I think the president of Mexico is scared to death because the cartels really do wield unbelievable power within Mexico. So, um, and oh, don't forget Panama. President Trump is saying, no, in China, you are not going to come into Panama and control the canal. They are getting favored treatment. They are charging our vessels more to go through the Panama Canal than the Chinese ships. And President Trump has said, no, if you don't get this under control, we're going to take back over the Panama Canal. So when you zoom out to 30,000 feet, we've got a lot of protection on the southern border. But then you've got Russia and China conducting exercises, submarine exercises adjacent to Greenland. And so a lot of people just say, oh, this is so wrong. Trump is going to try and take over Greenland. Well, yeah, not militarily. He wants to buy Greenland. You know how many people live in Greenland? 30,000. It's a very sparsely populated area, and it is very unfriendly to human inhabitants. It's just really a big sheet of ice, and it's cold, and the weather is miserable. The fog rolls in, the fog rolls out. It's raining most of the time, and when it's not raining, it's snowing. So who in the heck would want to live in Greenland? It's not because he wants to build a golf course there. I assure you of that. It is for our own national security because, you know, the Danes just aren't capable of protecting their nation like we would be. So he sent Steve Wyckoff along with Secretary Rubio to meet with the Danes to talk about our annexing Greenland or purchasing it from Denmark, and they don't want to do it. Well, I think Trump is going to apply so much pressure that they really won't have any choice. And, you know, there's parts of it that I don't like. I'm kind of, I guess my knee-jerk reaction is I would like to work within the bounds of our country. But the fact of the matter is sometimes you just got to put your big boy pants on and realize that we don't live on an island. We cannot survive in this world. We're all, to a large degree, interdependent on one another. Even with our nemesis, China, we are dependent on China for many of our minerals and right now, pharmaceuticals. But as Trump pointed out, one of his second biggest accomplishments is $18 trillion in pledged investment inside the United States. Imagine that. Do you know that our federal government's annual budget, I think, is at $4 trillion? So just look at that. That's over 4 times the size of our national budget on an annual basis. That is huge amounts of money, new money coming into America. And the result will be jobs for American citizens. What a tremendous accomplishment that is. And, you know, I said 37 trillion in debt. Now that's scary. And the interest on that debt is now $1 trillion a year. Those are real numbers. And one of the things that concerns me about President Trump is that, from my take, I don't think he's attacking the deficit and the debt as aggressively as I would prefer him to do it. But it is clear to me that his strategy is that will increase this country's GDP and will outrun the debt. Well, I think that sounds great if he can do it, but it's also a very risky strategy. What if we fail? What if that strategy doesn't work? So I would advocate a two-pronged approach that one, we attack the debt and reduce it while increasing the GDP, then we outrun it. We win both ways. Now, I saw Scott Bessent on an interview with Maria Bartiromo just yesterday from Davos. He is one smart guy, and I think he's probably among the most respected of Trump's cabinet. And there are a lot of really good people in Trump's cabinet. It is an all-star cast. It truly is. But Bessent said that the percent of our debt to GDP has already fallen from 6% to 5.2%, and that's just in 12 months. And a large source of that debt reduction is coming from, anybody care to venture a guess? Tariffs. Hundreds of millions of dollars of newfound revenue is flooding into our nation's coffers as a result of tariffs. Now, the Supreme Court is going to rule any day now whether that President Trump is authorized under his emergency powers to tariff foreign countries. Now, I predict that the Supreme Court is going to render a decision and that they will say no, that President Trump lacks the power to tariff people or other countries under the emergency powers. But I do believe that they will come back with nuanced exceptions legitimizing the majority of the tariffs. So if the Supreme Court were to rule against Trump on all levels and the tariffs had to stop and God forbid they'd have to be repaid, they would wreck our economy. It would be devastating for our economy right now because Trump has got it moving everything all in the right directions. And if you listen to The Truth on Saturdays, you've heard me and our guests talk about this a lot. Anthony, how are we doing on time here? We got a break coming up sometime, don't we? Okay. Well, Michael, text us to tell us how much time we got before the break, if you would, because I don't want to blow your run of the show. The economy is just performing miraculously. You look at it, we've got the tariffs, hundreds of billions of dollars. It's estimated that tariffs are going to produce $600 billion in 2026. That's phenomenal. That is material significant. Just please, justices of the Supreme Court, don't mess it up for us. Find those nuanced exceptions so we can keep running down that track. 2, the big, beautiful bill hasn't even shown up yet, but it's about to. The amount of money that taxpayers are going to gain from this is just going to show up in 2026. It is going to be hugely beneficial to the consumer confidence and consumer spending. That's the biggest segment of our economy. That is going to be significant. We've got also deregulation that is going to help businesses spend and do so faster. That $18 trillion. We had the fires in California a year ago. Out of 650 homes that were devastated, and I'm speaking in round numbers, do you know how many new building permits have been issued a year later? 30. That's the problem with government. So President Trump is deregulating in the federal government. In fact, he has said for every new regulation a bureaucrat wants to bring to the table, they've got to bring 10 regulations with them that will be eliminated. So that is going to be significant. One of the most significant parts of our economy is the cost of energy. It is pervasive. It affects every single thing that we eat, drink, drive, consume. Petroleum is part of the manufacturing process at every single level. And in plastics, it's a big part of the ingredients. And so the price of petroleum has come down remarkably. In fact, it would be unbelievable if you took California out of the equation. But even with California in the cost of automobile petroleum fuel, gasoline, it's like 320 a gallon, and that's down from 480, I think, at the high when Biden was our illegitimate president just a year ago. What a difference a year makes. So we have those elements that I spoke about. What else have we got coming down the pike? We've got the investment that is coming. Jerome Powell. He finally showed up for the party. We've had 0.25 point reductions in interest rates, plus the 0.5 point that he gave us a year ago, over a year ago, just before the 2024 election. Most people thought that was election tampering. I do as well. And but nevertheless, that's the whole point of reduced cost of borrowing money. They promised us 2 more cuts this year. That will probably be another 0.5 point. So that is going to help our economy. And so I agree with President Trump. His economic policies are working. We have only seen the beginning of it. Then finally, the border. And the border is closed. You know, Biden lacked congressional authority to close the border, but with the enactment of no new laws, President Trump has closed the border. I don't mean he's reduced it to a trickle. I mean he's closed it. And now we're seeing the effects of deportation. It's messy. Mistakes have been made. They will continue to be made. And then we've got Alligator Alcatraz about 2 hours from where I'm sitting right now. I don't like it. I think it's inhumane. I wish they would close it. I mean, I'm all in favor of what Trump is doing to deport illegals in this country. I think it's a longer conversation that we need to have. I have talked about the Gordon Plan on The Truth with John Gordon on the John Fredericks Radio Network every Saturday and Sunday. I hope you'll tune in from noon to 2. You can also watch us on Getter, Rumble, X, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live. Are we out of time? We got to go to a break, Anthony? Anthony is telling us that Michael is telling us that we got to go to a break. But that's the bad news. The good news is we'll be right back. And I'm not done. I got more to talk about. And we got Rich McCormick coming up right after the break. I host The Truth with John Gordon every Saturday and Sunday from noon to 2 o'clock on the John Fredericks Radio Network. We're also live on Getter, Rumble, YouTube, X, and what I'll leave out, Anthony, I'm sure, Facebook. So if you like what we are putting out, consider going to one of those pages and subscribing. We'd love to have you. Hit the notification button. You'll know when we drop a new segment. It is my honor and privilege to introduce to our listeners now Congressman Rich McCormick from the great state of Georgia. Congressman McCormick, my friend, good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning. Good to be with you today.
So did you hear any of the monologue this morning leading into your introduction?
I did not. We're actually trying to read up on some PBMs and healthcare businesses and some of the other things that are going to be added to this healthcare bill that the president has proposed.
Well, I'm not hurt, but I've spent a lot of time talking about President Trump's first year in office, in his second term, and just in my view, the unbelievably remarkable job this guy has performed. I think he works 15 to 18 hours a day. He does it for the American people. He already had fame, he already had fortune, and he had the distinction of being a successful president. He really didn't need to do it. And but the fact is he did, and it has been wonderful, I believe, for our country. Let's start off and let me ask you, what do you think about annexing Greenland?
I think it'd be a good thing for America. I think it'd be a good thing for Greenland. I think it actually would have many benefits for Europe in the way it strategically benefits stability of that Arctic region. As any military people know, that we've always had a polar cap up there, and we've broken through it with submarines, and we've explored it, and we have bases up in that area. But Russia is far more advanced, has far more bases up in that region, and China wants to have a foothold. If we don't have that area secured, and it's a large landmass with a ton of water, a ton of natural resources, and very strategically located, it puts us at a huge disadvantage, especially at a time where China and Russia are looking forward to expanding their imprint in that region. Now, the way we do it is what matters, of course, and President Trump uses every tool in the box to leverage that to get what he wants. Some people don't like it. I was just with some Europeans last night that are ambassadors, and their concerns are understood. And I understand why people don't like to be strong armed. But this is all leverage points. When you look at how Trump gets things done, he purposely trolls the media. He says he trolls the media in order to get a response, to get people to focus on something he wants them to focus on, so we can actually get a solution to a problem.
Well, and I pointed out that Russia is trying to take over parts or all of the Ukraine. China wants to move in on Taiwan. Will they? Will they get it? Who knows? But don't you think that there is a new world order that's sort of playing out in real time right
Of course
before our
there
very
is.
eyes? And we can either sit back and wait for the tooth fairy, or we can say, look, this is the world we live in, and we've got to play the game as
We,
our adversaries are.
we've had our head buried in the sand for a very long time. During the Biden administration, we were not paying attention. And Ukraine's not the only problem. And yes, I agree that if President Trump was president, they would have never invaded Ukraine to begin with. Remember, the first invasion of Crimea was during Obama's administration. The second was during Biden's administration.
100%.
But if you look at just the Western Hemisphere, their influence, China and Russia's influence on Venezuela, which they had people on the ground there, not just Cuba. And Cuba's a bad influencer too, by the way, in the Western Hemisphere, but their influence in Brazil and other places in Central and South America. It is very worrisome. You do not want these bad actors having a foothold in the Western Hemisphere. It's against everything we've ever studied on the Monroe Doctrine. It's why we have to make sure that we exert our influence and that we're not usurped by those bad actors.
And is it your opinion that Venezuela falls into that same category, and that's
It,
probably more to do with the motivation than fentanyl or oil?
Well, considering their natural resources and their proximity to the United States, look, Cuba needs to be dealt with too. Quite
Yeah,
frankly, it's
we
long
talked about that.
overdue. But we keep on doing these half measures. I hate half measures. It never
Mhm.
benefits the United States. Either you're a bad guy or a good guy. If you're a bad guy, come hard. I mean, Russia could have been crushed a long time ago. And I mean a long time ago. They have a $2.1 trillion GDP. Texas has a $2.7 trillion GDP. Germany has a $5 trillion GDP. Collectively, Europe has a $20 trillion GDP, 10 times the size of Russia. So when we talk about the unfair advantage that Russia has over Ukraine, Europe has exactly the same advantage over Russia. And that's without the United States involved, which has $30 trillion. We could
Well,
sanction them into oblivion even without the military use.
well, there's one deterrent there, and that is their nuclear arsenal. They're also the second most powerful, have the second most powerful nuclear collection of any country on Earth. And so
But
I think
this
that's
is
why
why
we
it's
give
really
them
important to
undue
address.
deference.
Yeah, this is why it's really important to address Iran's nuclear program and to never let them get a foothold, because once you get a foothold in nuclear capabilities, that's why India and Pakistan and North Korea can all deal from a different position of power. Makes it much more tricky, as you were just alluding to.
So, Congressman, since I am a firm believer in meritocracy, we have a caller that has been patient for a long time this morning, and I invited him to invited callers to call. So I better go to Rob. He's on right now with us. Welcome to the show, Rob.
Hey, John. Good morning. Thanks for taking my call. I never got a chance to speak with you, but I know John speaks highly of you. And Congressman McCormick, great to meet you, even if it's over the phone. I wanted to answer your original question that you started off with. What do we think about Davos? And the answer is it's a playground for the elites. But I do think Trump should go, because Trump doesn't go there to kiss ass. He goes there to chuck grenades and to throw bombs, which proverbially speaking, of course. And they need that. The world needs to see that we have a leader. We're not going to have America first. We're not going to roll over. Republican Party, on the other hand, that's a different story, because I hate to say this. I mean, the party just doesn't fight. So it's nice to have at least the leader of the party get up there and stick it to these elites.
Well,
Because
I
read
have to
this morning.
agree with you, Rob. Where are you calling from, by the way?
Oh, I'm in New York. I'm in Westchester County, a little north of New York City.
Oh, great. Well, thank you for
Actually,
calling. Let's unpack what Rob spoke about, Congressman. I happen to agree with him that Davos is the playground for the elites, but it's more than a playground. I mean, they're talking serious stuff there. And a lot of those folks seem to want a new world order. And as long as they can be in charge, I think that's the scary part. Many of these people have not been elected to anything. So when you said you were meeting with some European diplomats last night, you're not in Davos, are you?
No, these are ambassadors. These are people here in America that have been appointed that have
So
Europe's best interest
what do you think about
in
Rob's insightfulness about the elite meeting in Davos every year? And it's been going on for over 50 years, and they want to impose their beliefs on the rest of the world. Your thoughts?
Sure. We have groups like that here in America too. We have elite people who have more money than Davos. If you start collecting the people here, if you consider how the central banking system was set up here, it was an elite group of people who met at Jekyll Island
That's
that
right.
changed the course of not only America but the world. But I do want to address one of the things he said about fighting and uniting. The Republicans have never been more united than this point of time with this narrow majority. President Trump's been able to exert his influence. And when we don't vote for something, sometimes it's not the most conservative thing when we pass things. And I don't like it. And I'm one of the holdouts a lot of times, but I don't make President Trump call me. That annoys him. He doesn't like it. But if you don't play the game, President Trump will exert enormous pressure on you to actually vote for something, even when it's not the most conservative thing ever, because he realized that it's the best thing you can get. So realize with a very slim majority, sometimes we have to swallow our pride and vote for something that's not as good as we want, knowing that if we try to get something more, and this is President Trump coming to our conference saying, I know this is not what you want. I know you want more. I know you want to be more conservative, but if you don't vote for this, you're going to get something worse. And that's what we have to face when these appropriations bills come up this week. If we don't pass it, you'll almost certainly get something worse. And that's straight from President Trump's mouth. So we are playing ball. And some people who are much more conservative like myself sometimes vote for bills we don't want to because it's the best thing we can. Because quite frankly, we have to end the debate in the Senate. Now, this is an interesting time. This is something we haven't talked a lot about. You can actually let it run its course. You don't need 60 votes. If you let every single Democrat talk as long as they want to twice, it will take weeks, but you will pass it with a simple majority. Usually we don't have that sort of time. In this case, we actually do. If you really force the closure of the government, it may last a couple of weeks, but we would get the vote we wanted to because we do have the simple majority, and that would be an interesting play by Senator Thune that hasn't been used in a very, very long time.
So what is life like as a congressman? We on the truth, we talk a lot about the deep state. And I don't know where your thoughts are. I was home from the fourth grade in November 22nd, 1963. I have the advantage of experience over you, Congressman. So I've lived a long time. But I was home when John Kennedy was killed, and I've had somewhat of an unhealthy obsession, but maybe it's a healthy obsession actually, because I think today that I've come to the conclusion, at least, that our own government killed John Kennedy, and the CIA carried it out, LBJ ordered it, and the FBI covered it up. That's my paradigm, and I think with a lot of evidence to support that. That is really pretty demonic when you think about it. And then we've lived through other tragedies like the implosion of Building 7, the attempted assassination on President Trump, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, who I knew, and Charlie had been on the truth. I was not his best friend, or probably not even a friend, but more than a casual acquaintance. We saw each other 2 or 3 times a year for the last 8 years, and were cordial towards one another. And that really sucker punched me in the gut. I mean, it hit me to my core, because at 72 years, I've never met a smarter human being, a more devout human being, and a more patriotic human being. And for him to be stripped from us and taken away, I'm not buying the official narrative. I'm not buying that Tyler Robinson acting alone. But do you worry about the deep state? Do you consider it to be real? Or am I just a senile old man who's gone conspiratorialist?
Well, I was just with Charlie Kirk's father this weekend by chance at an event, um, really neat by Freedom House and the Job Creators Network. Great patriot, very humble man. I will tell you the bigger problem we have right now is not with those individual actors. And you could say there's a conspiracy against people like Charlie. There's a lot of people who want to kill us.
Mm.
That's why we basically have security now in Congress, because people are openly plotting not just to kill the president, but kill people like Charlie and other leaders in this community. But really, what's scary, if you read Kash Patel's book, which I'm almost done with right now, on corruption in the CIA, in the FBI, in doing things not necessarily like assassinations, but assassinating your character and going after people legally, trying to put President Trump in jail, trying to keep him from actually running for president. This stuff's been going on for a long time. The weaponization of the United States government is one of the scariest things you'll ever see. If anybody's ever read the book Gulag Archipelago by Stolzhenitsyn, you would see how once a government gets out of control, the only way it stays in power is to continue oppressing its people. That's why socialism leads to communism, which leads to dictatorships, which leads to death. That's why the Khmer Rouge killed millions of people. That's why Gulag Archipelago killed 60 million people in about 40 years.
Okay.
It always leads to obstruction of justice and prosecution of the wrong people. It's happened in Brazil recently. It's happened obviously in Venezuela, Colombia, all over the world, and in the United States is the most shocking thing of all. In the United States, a country that's based on balance of power, they got away with it against many of us.
Okay, but what about the deep state? Do you consider it to be a real and something to be concerned about? Have you felt pressured at any time from quarters within our government that you sort of gave you the creeps?
I've never felt pressure directly, but I will tell you that Kash Patel book exposes that deep state. It is deep state. The bureaucracy that we have, we can't fire people that have been around for 40 years doing a horrible job and actually obstruct the president from getting his job done. That is the deep state. Those are the people that wait you out. And remember that are hired from DC, which is about 93% Democrat. So the deep state is against all of us, but especially against conservative thinking. It is integrated with a cancer known as liberalism.
Well, I appreciate your candor on it. It is a concern of mine. We only have about 3 minutes left. Let me just ask you two things. One, do you think you can get meaningful budget reform in the next bill? Can we get this federal deficit and this out of control budget under control?
It won't get under control, but it'll be better than what it is. I mean, if you look at the tariffs offsetting some of the deficit spending, it will be better than what it is, but you'll never get what you want. It is built-in harassment. You will see Social Security and Medicare go bankrupt in the next presidency, not this one. You'll see the budget come to a crisis. That's mathematically certain. And we haven't done anything because we're a reactionary government rather than a proactive government. That's the frustrating part of being up here, is because nobody handles things before it's an emergency. And once an emergency, you always come up with a halfway plan, which is not good.
So how does that bear on the midterms? You know, President Trump promised that he was going to get this deficit under control. And frankly, I agree with everything that you've said relative to that. I mean, you know, you do live in a political process. We do have a democracy. Everybody can't get their way on everything. You've got to come to the middle some. But it just seems to me that anybody who's living in America would not want to see the greatest country on earth come to an end because of an economic implosion. And when you got $1 trillion in interest to pay every year, which is the rate that it's at now, and growing, it seems to me that it's something that has got to be dealt with. Can you get reelected without meaningful budget control?
You can, because you're growing the economy faster than you're growing the debt. You're growing the economy faster than inflation. That's good for people just living every day. That's what they look at first. The debt seems like a back burner issue to them because they don't see the real hurt locker. The president does have the tariffs that's producing a tremendous amount of revenue. We just need to make sure he doesn't spend it on anything else. That it goes straight to debt. that he doesn't get caught up in the same thing, to use that as a tool in his toolbox, that it actually goes back to the people's debt so our children don't have to pay that. I also have a bill called the Incentivized Savings Act, which will pass this year. I'm looking for another bill in the Senate from Senator McCormick, hopefully, which I will be with this weekend, planning, which means at the end of the budget year, if you don't spend your money right now, you lose it. Somebody else spends it anyways. It's a horrible way of doing business. We all complain about it. Every bureaucracy does it. My bill says if you don't spend it, instead, whatever you save, 49% rolls over to next year. 49% goes back to debt and deficit, not the president, not the speaker, not higher headquarters, debt and deficit, 2% bonus retention for that department to sweeten the deal. So we reward people for saving rather than punish it. I think it'll be transformative to Congress and the way we spend money in government. And so I'm really looking for an out-of-the-box solution that I think is going to pass this year. Really excited about it.
So let me ask you, Congressman, what's your vision? What's next for Congressman McCormick? I thought you were going to run for the U.S. Senate, frankly, and I would have left sunny Palm Beach and come up there and campaign for you.
Well, you're too kind. We do have some big plans, but I don't want to get ahead of this election. I want to make sure this election is focused on, we need to beat Ossoff. He's got a track record to run against for sure. This is a tough year. Midterms, he's well ingrained. We need to be one team, one fight. We have three people fighting in that primary, and it's going to put us at a severe disadvantage for that election. I hope we do better as we learn in Georgia that we are almost 50% minorities. We have to appeal to everybody. We have to make sure that our rhetoric is conservative but appealing. That is super important for the future of Georgia.
Were you surprised when Marjorie Taylor Greene resigned from Congress? That one really blew me away. You know, I met her at Mar-a-Lago in 2018 or maybe 2017. We were both dialing for dollars for President Trump. We sat at the same table for 4 or 5 hours, and I knew then just intuitively that this gal was going places. She has a lot of charisma and a lot of chutzpah, but she worked so hard to get the position, and she was effective in a number of ways. I don't know about legislatively, but she certainly had the bully pulpit at her disposal. It just blew me away when she just kind of got mad and quit.
So remember, once you get at odds with President Trump and he gives you a nickname, it's trouble, especially inside the Republican Party, and especially when you've hitched your train to him. I knew she was in big trouble. And remember, this is the problem with Marjorie. She had the worst performance in Georgia when compared to President Trump. Underperformed Trump by 8 points. You compare that to the best performing district, which was mine, which overproduced by 8 points. This is really important about the message. I vote more conservative than Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's objective truth. So you can have a very conservative legislative record. You can actually get more legislation passed. You can grow the party. You can outperform in politics and still be conservative. You don't have to punch everybody in the face. You can say she's effective. Yeah, effective at becoming famous, but not effective at growing the party, not effective at passing legislation. What's important? Being famous or being effective? That's what we have to really look at when we come to politics. And too many people are addicted to the fame rather than addicted to success. It is time to make this about us rather than me, to grow the party through something that appeals to everybody, like Reagan did when he won by 20 points. The Democrats have picked all the wrong fights. This is the time to act. And I think President Trump is being brilliant at this, but I think we can even do better as we move forward.
So you think she's going to run for president? That's sort of the rumor that's out there.
I don't think so. I don't think she has a lane to run in. She can't take the Trump lane. She certainly can't take any sort of appealing lane that's going to get her any traction. She may run just for the fame of it, to stay in the news lines, but she's done in politics. You know, it's nothing personal. I've known Marjorie for a long time, but this is not her time.
In my life, I've never really been at the top of the class. I've been sort of middle, top third. You're one smart guy. Are the other people in Congress nearly as smart as you are? An MD, an MBA, and a veteran of our armed forces?
Well, I'm doing my homework every day. You know, I got to learn just like you. I'm human, but I put my work in. That's the main thing.
Well, and I, for one, really appreciate it. Rich McCormick, it is always a pleasure to speak with you. I've enjoyed our friendship for many years now. We're not on speed dial, but we have a good congenial relationship, and I value that. Have a great rest of your day.
You got my number, Semper Fi.
We come to you every Saturday and Sunday on John's Radio Network at The Truth with John Gordon. We welcome you to join us. We're on between noon and 2, every Saturday and Sunday. We also live stream, just like we're doing right now, on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, X, and Getter. And if you want to do me a teensy little favor, just subscribe to one of those channels. It helps us so much. And like us if you do, and be sure, if you'd like to share our broadcast. It really helps. It is hard to get established in this space because there's so many dang, we call them YouTubers, podcasters. It is a very competitive field these days. And we'd like to have a bigger megaphone. The only way we can do that is if our listeners, you know, that 98% of our listeners are not subscribed. And if we could just get half those people to hit the subscribe button, it doesn't cost anything, takes less time than it takes for me to explain it. It would magnify our reach so much. And you know, I'm not engaging in shameless self-promotion. I don't do this for glory. I sure don't do it for money. It costs me more than you can imagine to put this on the air every Saturday and Sunday. But I do it because I love this country and I do believe in conservative values. And that's what we talk about. And we welcome you to join us, and we would welcome you to subscribe to us if you would care to. We've got the Georgia Peaches on, and we're going to be talking about the Georgia Senate 18th race that just happened this week and some remarkable results out of that. We've got a governor's race in Georgia, a lieutenant governor's race, a U.S. Senate race, and then there's always that little thorn in our side, Fani Willis, who I love to talk about because I think she is the biggest Fanny, and maybe phony. All those wrapped up in one in the room. We had our John Gordon Truth Dumbass Award for 2025, and Fani Willis was the winner. And she has some stiff competition comprised of Brad Raffensperger, Chris Carr, Kemp. Who else did we nominate for Dumbass of the Year? Oh, Josh Buffoon, who as I affectionately refer to him, probably just made our Georgia Peaches mad with that one. Sorry about that. But I don't like pettiness. I really don't like pettiness. And he is the godfather of pettiness in my view. All right. So with that, let's get to our Georgia Peaches, and now we'll get into it. Welcome, Debbie Dooley, and your cohorts there, Jackie Harding and Celestine James.
Good morning.
Hey, welcome. And
Good morning. Good morning.
Got a lot to unpack here. Georgia had just had a state Senate race in my home county of Bibb County, Georgia, for the vacated seat that John Kennedy left to run for lieutenant governor. And some pretty amazing and encouraging results out of that race. Which of you ladies would like to speak to that?
Okay, I can speak to this. I actually had made an endorsement in that race, and that was the gentleman, that McNeil, that's going into a runoff. And I think Josh McCoon, John, we're friends, but Josh McCoon's doing a good job. The Democrats targeted the state Senate race, state Senate District 18, and you had Republicans running, you had one Democrat running, and they thought they were going to flip the seat because of what happened. The Republicans are not good in turning out for special elections. And I know you had a House District Chair, District 8, Chan Jones, was actually working very hard to make sure Republicans turned out to vote because the Democrats had nationalized that election, and they had one Democrat running. There was Congressional District 2, a lot of their chairmen worked. Everybody worked hard. Josh McCoon, the Georgia Republican Party, worked hard to make sure we turned out our vote. And you know what? 63% of the voters in that special election were Republican. They voted for the Republican candidate. So this was bigger than most folks know because there was a lot of angst that our people wouldn't turn out. They did. Now I think February 17th is where we'll have a runoff between the Democrat and the Republican. And we need our Republican voters to turn back out again. You cannot take anything for granted because Democrats are motivated. They want to give a black eye to Donald Trump and the Republican Party. So we've got to outwork them. And that was a big victory. It really was.
So the Republican candidate, let's see here, I've got the results. Got Eric Wilson got 20.25% of the vote, but that doesn't really tell the whole story because, as you point out, Debbie, Republicans aggregated 64% of the vote. So now Wilson faces Lamario Brown, who got 37% of the vote in a runoff. When is the runoff going to be conducted?
February 17th.
February 17th. So why are Republicans seemingly not as good at just grassroots fundamental politics like getting out the vote as the Democrats are? Where is the disconnect?
Well, I can tell you one disconnect is the fact that Democrats pour money into seats. They pay people to go door to door, and they're doing all that. And a lot of Republicans, a lot of GOP voters that are not active with their party, they, just don't get motivated to turn out for one race. And everybody involved in this race did a great job at turning voters out. And we showed that that was still a Republican seat. Now, keep in mind, okay, that election, special election, was just to fill out the term of John Kennedy, who represented that district, who resigned and stepped down to run for lieutenant governor. So there will be another Republican primary. Voters have to go back to the polls, vote February 17th to vote for the Republican in that district. And then they'll have to turn out and vote in May. There's another qualifying to fill out a 2-year term. So, you're going to have, just like in Georgia 14, which Jackie can talk about when I get through running my mouth this morning. But they're going to have to turn around again and show up in May. So you could have some of the Republicans that did not win could turn out and vote again, turn out and run again for a full term. But this is the nature of the beast. But Jackie can give you info on what's going on in Marjorie Taylor Greene's seat.
Well, we just talked to Rich McCormick about that very topic. Jackie, welcome to the show. And you're up there in the 14th district. And Marjorie Taylor Greene just kind of surprised and shocked the world, I thought, when she resigned from Congress because she worked so hard to get there. And she walked into battle on so many fronts for the last 4 years. And I always admired her tenacity. And so it was kind of a shocker when she got mad and kind of a rift with the president. I always felt like, okay, they squabbled, they got in a little squabble, but they'll kiss and make up, just like Elon and the president have done. But Marjorie just said, to heck with it, I'm out of here. Kind of left y'all holding the bag, right?
Yeah, well, she's auditioning for The View.
Good luck with that one. Another sinking ship.
I've been interviewed a million times about the feud between Marjorie and Donald Trump, and I likened it to parents who were separated getting a divorce and having faith that their friendship would mend. But you know what, I've grown up, and I've realized that there's more important things to think about. Honestly, I support both of them. I support my president, and I would be happier with Marjorie if she hadn't left before her term was up, because that that opens up a whole can of worms that I don't think the normal person fully understands. Talking about getting out the vote and getting Republicans to show up, and why aren't Republicans better at showing up? Well, Republicans are in their homes, raising their families, working really hard, making repairs on their cars and their houses, and they're trying to survive, and they're trying to occasionally go on vacation and live a good, healthy life. And it's because of crazy policies. It's because of people resigning that need to finish their term. It's because of so many things that are making Americans, Republicans, have to basically set up residence at their polling locations, because you're used to, a normal person thinks of elections as when a president gets elected. Let's go vote in November. And oh gosh, we got the midterms. Oh, is it already time to vote 2 years after we voted for our president? That's what normal people think of.
Yep.
And you literally have to be in the GOP. You have to be an active member of your local Republican Party to know that all of these crazy things are happening. And we've got a jungle primary, because the way it's set up in Georgia is when special elections occur, you have what's referred to as a jungle primary, and which means anybody, if you're a Republican, independent, libertarian, anybody can be on one ballot. So we have basically, on March 10th is the special election date, the magical date to elect someone to fill out the remainder of Marjorie Taylor Greene's term. And we have got 21 people on the ballot. And 17 of those, 17 people on the ballot are Republicans.
So who out of those 17, who are identified as the front runners? I would imagine that you've got, out of that batch, you got a lot of fringe candidates that are in it for,
you have a lot
why.
of, you have a lot of good people, a lot of nice people, thinking they're doing the right thing, stepping up and running for office. I haven't met any of them, and I've been personally interviewing each one. And, I'd say the front runners probably, I'd say Colton Moore,
Yeah, I agree.
Clay Fuller, Jim Tully,
Mhm.
a lot of other good people. I don't want to exclude anybody, so I'm sorry if I excluded, but those seem to be the front runners based on local events that we have and straw poll results and that kind of thing. But if you just think about this, and I'm sorry to dominate so much of the time, but if you think about this, the 14th district is so Republican, it's so conservative, and so Christian. It's a wonderful, wonderful place to be in Georgia. And we have like 70% of the voters are Republicans. But if you have a 70% pie and it's cut into 17 pieces, and you have a Democrat pie and it's cut into 2, we have a real possibility of having a Democrat be our next congressman. And that is terrifying to me. And so the GOP, no one else but the local parties and our district party, the 14th Congressional District GOP, is doing all of it. We are doing get out the vote campaigns. We're raising money so we can do that. We're hosting forums so that people can come out and get to know these people. So tell you what, if you haven't done this lately and you know a local Republican Party member, thank them for their service, because no one pays our gas or our wear and tear on our cars or the time and treasure that it took away from our families to do this job. But we are working ourselves to death to get people out to the polls for this election, and the runoff is April 7th.
And Reagan Botts is a candidate for Georgia 14. She will be joining us shortly.
Yes, she's a good friend.
Good. She's another one. I think she told me she's raised $100,000. And Celestine, what's happening in your neck of the woods?
Okay, I sit in the 12th Congressional District, and I am deeply concerned about the state of the Republican Party, not only in the state of Georgia, but the United States. But let's just talk about Georgia. We lack leadership. We do. And that is my opinion. And I'm talking to a lot of people across the state. We need to have a clearly defined strategy to send down to all of our district chairs as to the direction in which we need to go. And it needs to trickle down to our county chairs. And so I'm seeing an absence of leadership. I am.
And you're speaking on the state level?
I'm looking at the state level. I'm looking at, and I will go ahead and say it, Josh McCoon.
Yeah.
Josh McCoon, we need to see you. We need direction. And it's not for some people, but for all in the Republican Party. There are different factions right now, and it's highly splintered. And so people want to talk about unity, but it begins at the top.
Yeah. Well, you know, I don't have a seat at the table in Georgia Republican circles any longer. But I did once upon a time. I was the chairman of the Georgia Republican Foundation, and Billy Lovett was our chairman. And this is in the late 80s and early 90s. I'm not sure when y'all were born. You probably don't know who I'm talking about. But, you know, we did have cohesion. And David Schaefer was actually the executive director of the party then. Not the chairman, but he had a full-time job running the state office. And from what I could tell, everybody was rowing in the same direction, and we raised money. I mean, we raised millions of money. That was really my job as the chairman of the foundation. I don't take any credit. Billy Lovett is the one who went out and pressed the flesh and got people to give. And he brought national figures into Georgia, and we had dinners for them, and we would raise hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's where the time, the energy, and the focus was. This guy, Josh Buffoon, has spent his time and energy engaging in petty politics and going after people that he doesn't like. Now, that's my perception. You all are free to correct the record if you'd like, and I'm open to receiving information because, like I said, I really am not that close to it today as I was, but you know, I do think I probably represent the more rank and file because I'm not as intimately involved. So it's all perception, and that is the perception that I think that he has given off, and I don't like it. I wish it would change. And to your point,
I do as well. I do as well. When we get to the point and we're a leader, I want you to lead. It is not personal with me. But when we get to the point where we start targeting people and making personal attacks and not standing up and speaking out against injustices in the party, and we allow it to continue because someone is your friend, I have a problem with that.
Well, Celestine, I want to get to know you better. You're my new best friend because you and I see it exactly right.
Best friend.
No.
So let's talk about the governor's race and the U.S. Senate race. You got Burt Jones, Chris Do Nothing Carr, Brad Most Secure Election Ever Raffensperger, and Clark Dean. And there are a lot of people evidently that are gunning for Burt Jones because millions of dollars are being spent on negative ads against Burt. I know Burt. I like Burt. He's a friend of mine. But I'm one step removed because I'm down here in sunny Florida. What's going on?
I don't know, but Reagan Box is waiting to come on. She's in Georgia 14.
All right. Well, by all means, bring her in. Reagan, welcome.
It's great to be here.
And you're in Georgia 14, Debbie said? No.
Yes.
Oh, you are? Okay. So we got two people from Georgia 14th. Well, we talked about MTG and the congressional race. So I want to move us along and talk about the governor's race. What do each of you think? How do you make odds? And where's all this, these negative ads coming from attacking Burt?
Well, I can tell you, I did research into that group, that top secret group that's violating Georgia election law because they're running these ads. We don't know who paid for it. I tied their group to two attorneys that had done work for Mitt Romney and Jeb Bush. So that lets you know. And the beneficiary of those ads is Brad Raffensperger. He's got the money to pay for them if he wants to. He is the beneficiary of those ads, and I think it's despicable. I oppose dark money in politics. If someone's running a campaign ad, I want to know who paid for it. I want to know. Voters have a right to know who is paying for that. So I think at some point we need to look really hard on a federal level about these dark money groups. And I think Bert's the front runner, so they're attacking him. Heritage Foundation, not Heritage, I think it's Wall Street Journal, just came out against his plan to do away with the state income tax and all that. But Reagan, okay, you're working. Reagan, are you still with us?
Yes, ma'am. I don't know what's going on with the camera. I'm clicking on everything.
Okay, so you want to tell us, I know you, have you raised any money? Were you able to raise money?
Yes, ma'am. It's coming in every single day from all over the country.
Good. How much have you raised so far?
Probably including the last quarter of the Senate race, probably right at 50,000.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, Reagan is
quarter.
running for what office?
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Oh, for the congressional seat in the.
She's one of the many candidates in Georgia 14. So Reagan can, I mean, I know you have a lot of grassroots support. So can you tell us about why you're running and what you would want to do? What separates you from the other candidates?
I really know the issues and I genuinely care. Like, I love people. I don't have to know you to love you, but I'm going to fight for you because I'm tired of watching the people in this country suffer, and especially the people of the 14th. I was born and raised here, and most people in the 14th don't have a lot of money. They're struggling to pay bills, and I'm watching poor policy just affect them on every level of their life, and people deserve better. And that's why I'm running. My three main issues are healthcare, affordability, and availability, public safety, and affordability overall, because 37% of Americans now are pushed into welfare, and we're pushing people out of middle class.
And that sounds good. John, you have questions for Reagan?
Well, I wanted to. We've covered the 14th pretty thoroughly. I'm happy to spend as much time as you'd like, but I really kind of want to get to this governor's race. And you were saying Brad Raffensperger may be tied to the dark money, potentially without evidence, but that's a suspicion, which is okay. But my question is, why is Brad Raffensperger anywhere still relevant in Georgia politics today? He went on 60 Minutes and said it was the most secure election in the state's history. And now we know that there were 170 ballot tapes that came out of Fulton County that were not signed and certified according to state law, yet he certified the ballots anyway. And, my work on the with the Shealy folks and on the Jeffords and Satir case against Fulton Board of Elections, I've seen the evidence. We know that 2020 was stolen, and I campaigned for attorney general all over the state, delivering the evidence of why it was. We know that it was stolen. Yet Raffensperger, running against Jody Heiss, David Belle-Isle, Sheriff TJ, claimed to have gotten 52% of the vote and won without a runoff. I met one kid at the University of Georgia and over 10,000 Georgians that I met who said anything nice about Brad Raffensperger. What the heck? Somebody help me understand.
Well, number one, I think you mispronounced his name. His last name is what he is, Rattenberger. Brad Rattensperger. Because he's a big rat. He is the Democrats' preferred candidate in the Republican primary. So, you know, Brad Raffensperger, he's arrogant, he's egotistical. And I can tell you something else. If he's the nominee, he will lose, because there's a lot of Republican voters that will not vote for him for governor. But I think Burt Jones is going to win. I think Brad Rattensperger will go down in flames like he deserves to do. And, you know, I just, you know, I think it's good that we're going to go after him, Rattensperger. That's his
Celestine, what do you hear from over there in Augusta? Where are people lining up?
Well, you know, I will say this about the 12th, and I want them to hear me loud and clear. They seem to have a problem understanding what it means to be a Republican in the 12th House. And so we have a lot of work to do. But there's a lot of support right now for Burt Jones. He is the front runner, and just a groundswell of support. So this is his to win, unless something else comes up down the road to where you know, there's some irregularities. But right now, he is the front runner.
I agree. I don't even literally let myself think about that race. Obviously, I'm hyper focused on the 14th district congressional special election, but the governor's race, I mean, I see it as, it's definitely Burt Jones's to win.
And then we have the Georgia Senate race to replace John Ossoff. Garrett Dooley, the governor's favorite.
Hey, if I could interrupt,
Yeah.
Speaking of the Senate race, so your guest, Reagan Boggs. Hey, Reagan, I saw her last night at our Walker County Republican Party meet and greet with the congressional members, or candidates rather. She actually started her political career running for the U.S. Senate. And so when Marjorie resigned, she stepped into the congressional race. So I think that would be something to, you know, worth asking Reagan about, because I'd love to hear more about that and how that went. What made her decide that, Reagan, if you can hear me.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Loud and
Okay.
clear.
I don't know what's going on with the camera, and I'm sorry about that. But anyways, I originally wanted Marjorie's seat, and at the time she was doing good. No one could ever foresee what was going on with her and Trump and her resigning like she did. And I'd actually got a phone call that the day before she resigned that Trump was already vetting me. Trump and his team were vetting me to primary Marjorie. So it just seemed like a logical crossover.
Well, what do you suppose is driving Marjorie Taylor Greene? Does she have an act too?
Well, my personal opinion is she was wanting Trump to endorse her for either Senate or governor.
Mm-hmm.
He sent her the internal polling and it wasn't there. And he said, I can't endorse you for this. And she got mad and just kept retaliating.
Yeah, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, and that's what we're seeing now with that. But again, hey, Marjorie will end up on The View or some other liberal harpy show because they like it, because she's attacking Republicans.
Do y'all think she's going to run? Do you think she's going to run?
I think she's going to run for governor. I really do think she's going to run for governor, me personally.
She'll lose bigly.
I know she'll lose, but that's why she's going on The View and CNN to make herself look more moderate and broaden her base.
So, Reagan, you were running for the U.S. Senate at one point. You switched to the congressional race. Is that what I understand?
Yes, sir. I've already went to 140 counties, probably put 140,000 miles on my two vehicles, and just been traveling the state the last nearly 3 years.
So what do you make of the remaining field? Garrett Dooley, Mike Collins, and Buddy Carter.
They all have massive holes, and I'm really afraid of all that. I don't think a Republican's going to win this race.
I did have a Republican who I know and respect tell me that Ossoff has done a very good job of
Yep.
constituent services. And I think that, when it gets down to the pulling the lever, people are going to say, well, what have you done for me? What have you done for me lately? And maybe that does favor Ossoff. It pains me to say that. There is nothing about him I like. He is an empty suit if I've ever seen one, but he is the incumbent. And as I found out the hard way, $1 million and 4 months of my life later, that eye is a very powerful thing when people walk into the booth.
Well,
I-
let me.
Mike Collins,
I-
Mike
I-
Collins
agree
is
with that.
winning by. Go ahead, Celestine.
Yeah, I wanted to say that, John Ossoff is one of the candidates. He's never stopped campaigning. He's
Mhm.
never stopped. And his people, they are Johnny on the spot. I spoke with a veteran this morning, and she's one of those people. She is Republican, but she said, he worked for me. When I went to my Republican representative, he did not help me with my issues, but she went to John Ossoff, and they went above and beyond
Yep.
in order to make sure that this veteran's situation was resolved. And so she says, I'm going to vote for John Ossoff. Now, she's Republican, but this man stays on military bases. He has his people. They're even going into Republican meetings.
Yep.
John Ossoff has his people going into Republican meetings, and they're being welcomed. This to me is just wow. And so when I look at our candidates right now, we don't have a Republican right now, still today, that can beat John Ossoff. He's still the candidate.
And I think the best candidate, you have Buddy Carter, has got a lot of baggage the Democrats can run against. You have Mike Collins, has got tremendous baggage that he will get trounced in November. But then you have Derek Dooley, who doesn't have a record. And so he doesn't have, there's nothing about him that Democrats, that the Ossoff camp can pick apart. Derek Dooley's part of the Kemp machine, and he has not spent. He has been focusing on raising money. They've got leadership in 159 counties, and then you have Buddy Carter and Mike Collins that have already started running campaign ads out there. Derek Dooley has not run any ads. He's been focused on raising money, getting support in the counties. So he doesn't have a record like Collins and Buddy Carter have that John Ossoff and the Democrats can pick apart and run ads after ad after ad against them. So I think Derek Dooley is the best choice. And you can watch when he starts running ads, when independent expenditure ads are run against Mike Collins and Buddy Carter. You're going to see a fighter that's out there ready to fight.
Well, he's certainly got a great name to run for a political office in
I'm not
Georgia.
related to him, but
But you like his last name, and so do I, because I'm a big Georgia fan. All right, so we know that Kemp wants Dooley because he single-handedly anointed him as the front runner in the Senate race. Who does Kemp want in the governor's race? Who would be his favorite?
I don't think he's made a decision. I think the race Governor Kemp's pushing is the Senate race. So I don't expect, that doesn't mean he won't do it, but I don't expect Governor Kemp to endorse in the governor's race. I think Burt Jones has done a good job, and if I were to handicap it, he is the one to beat, because there's a lot of pushback against Brad Raffensperger by conservative grassroots, and you'll have a lot of the grassroots that will not vote for him if he is the GOP nominee, because there's a lot of bad blood that you can't go back, go back on.
So I've always wondered about the relationship between Kemp, Raffensperger, and Carr. Seems like Carr is Kemp's puppet, from my perception. Raffensperger, though, is very different. He doesn't seem to be aligned so much with Kemp, but then again, I don't really know. How about you other peaches? What do you think? Celestine, Reagan, Jackie, how do you make book?
How do I make what?
How do you make book on the governor's race and where Kemp's allegiance would be?
Who do you think will win?
I think it'd be Bert. I really do think it'll be Bert. Like I said, I have a gut feeling Marjorie's going to try to jump in just to get at Trump for endorsing him. But hopefully Bert wins. I'd hate to see Raffensperger as our nominee.
Everybody would except Raffensperger's minions.
Jackie, do you have a perspective on this?
As I said before, I don't even think of anybody else as being in the race. I know that sounds crazy, but I mean, it's Bert's to lose. I
agree.
I just don't. My brain only has so much. I'm thinking about the special election, must win special election, and
right.
But I do believe it's Bert's to win. I mean, I haven't really. That's like the one race that I don't feel like I have to work 24/7 to create a miracle, to accomplish. I think I feel good about that race.
Well, we got the Georgia legislature starting in just a few days, and Burt Jones will be presiding over the Senate in there, so he'll have plenty of opportunity to get exposure as presiding officer of the Senate. What can we look forward to in this session of the Georgia legislature?
I think you're going to see a lot of maybe legislation passed to kind of stop what your favorite person is, Fani Willis, what she does, some of the ridiculous things that she does. John, with Fani Willis and her boy toy, Nathan Wade. So she was forced to testify. It's being forced to testify before a Senate committee. And, a lot of that was Burt Jones doing. He has gone after her. She targeted him. And so things are going to be interesting about she's, having to pay now. Her office is responsible for having to pay the alternate electors attorney's fees and legal fees and all of that. John, you know a lot about Fani. You've been on front lines going after her forever.
Well, I really have not gone after her. I've just let the facts lead me.
Right. I mean, you have really been critical of her.
I have been very critical of her, but not because I've never met the lady. I know nothing about her other than her public persona. I think she's arrogant. I think she's rude. And I think she disrespects the rule of law. She cast aspersions against every member of the Georgia bar, including myself, because lawyers already have a bad enough name. And here she is out traveling the globe on the taxpayer dollar through her boy, Nathan Wade. You call him her boy toy. But they made no secret of the fact that they traveled together to exotic places, and she was paying him exorbitantly through her office. So I think it is a fair inference to conclude that there was impropriety with taxpayer money. Now, Judge McAfee, who used to be her boss or used to work for Fani Willis, refused to hold her accountable and instead gave them the opportunity to go to the Court of Appeals. In other words, oh, this potato's too hot for me. Here, you take it. I'm not courageous enough to do my job. But he's the one who's going to have to rule on whether the conduct of Fani Willis did raise to the level of a violation of her duties as district attorney, whether it was unethical conduct. Now, the Court of Appeals found that she gave the appearance of impropriety. Some people are saying that's not impropriety, it's just the appearance, and the bar rules say that you have to violate a tenet of the bar rules, of which the appearance of impropriety is one of them. So I don't know why that wouldn't be improper conduct. What do you all hear?
I think the Georgia bar protects their own. I don't see them doing anything about her conduct. And just keep in mind, she had her butt handed to her in that young thug YSL case. It did not all turn out like she wanted to because she was so focused on a politically motivated witch hunt, going after Donald Trump, going after the Republican electors. And I remember, this is the hypocrisy of the Democrats. Van Jones is a commentator for CNN. And not long, a few days after the election, or the day of the 2020 presidential election, that showed Donald Trump may end up winning till all the little votes came in. Van Jones wrote an op-ed saying that Pennsylvania should seat a slate of alternate electors so they could be prepared in case the election was overturned. Not one thing was done about Van Jones doing that. They just go after the Republicans. So the hypocrisy is on full display in regard to that.
Well, Rob Pitts said that, make no mistake, the taxpayers of Fulton County will be the ones to pay the Trump and his 13 co-defendants if there is a finding that Fani Willis's office has to repay them their legal fees. Does that strike you as pretty arrogant? And I don't know. It just really hit me the wrong way.
It seems to be that there's a lot of rules for thee and not for me, and rules for thee and not for me. And as long as these people keep protecting Fani Willis, that is because you have a lot of Republicans who are in bed with her, who hate Donald Trump. So as long as we have this dynamic, it will continue. She will continue to thumb her nose. Fani Willis will continue to thumb her nose at the legal system and do whatever she doggone wants to do. So until such time we acknowledge that this is so, and we put in place some changes and we hold people accountable, it will continue.
Yeah.
And we'll be sitting right here still talking about it. And this lady will probably still be in her office. And it's just like nothing changes. Accountability is not just a word that we need to toss out. We need to see some actions. We need to see people being dealt with legally. What are the repercussions of this? Because we know that Fani Willis, should be removed. She should still not be in office. So, but she is being protected. Those are facts.
We are a nation of inaccountability. I mean, look at Pam Bondi. We've seen nothing from any of that. We've seen no arrest or nothing moving forward.
Well, that's a huge disappointment because Kash Patel promised us transparency. He promised that he was going to tell us the truth. And I share your concern. I don't think we've gotten the truth. A la Epstein, it's a cover-up. There's been no accountability. And, that I think the American people voted for Trump because he promised us accountability and transparency. But I think, I'm still optimistic, actually. I think Trump is going about it in a very strategic, methodical way. And We've talked on The Truth virtually every Saturday about how he is systematically deconstructing the deep state, but rather than going in and confronting it head on, he is doing it very cleverly.
Yes.
Tulsi Gabbard exposed Russia, Russia, Russia. Now, I think the 2020 election, the facts are going to come out, and we'll find out that not Georgia was not the only swing state that had the election stolen from him.
Well,
And
I mean, Trump's also saying there's no Epstein list. How did Maxwell and Epstein get put in jail if there's no Epstein list?
well, I look, I'm totally on board with you on that. I'm personally, I'm not as concerned about the list. What I want to know is who put Epstein in business. I mean, we've got the U.S. attorney from the Southern District of Florida who said he was told to go light on Epstein because he was part of intelligence. I think that tells us everything. I want to know, what role did our own federal government play, or Mossad, or what do they call the British intelligence? M4, M2, what is it, Anthony? MI6. There you go. Well, what role did each of them, or any of them, or did all of them play a role in Epstein's enterprise? That's the information I want. And I'm probably not in the majority of that, because I think there are a lot of voyeurs who want to see that list. My concern about the list, I'm sure that a list exists, but my concern is that you have the potential of dragging innocent people and ruining their lives and reputations by publishing a list when maybe they just flew on his plane or saw him socially and had nothing to do with the torrid activity. That's my hang up on the list. All right. Well, Reagan, we invited you on here. I'll let you have the last word. Tell us, what's your background? Why are you running for Congress? And anything that you'd like to say on the way out this morning.
I've had a strange background. After high school, I went to college for 5 years. I studied art and history in Paris, France. I was a runway model, shark and sea turtle research in the Florida Keys, mission work in Costa Rica. Then I moved out west, learned how to break, train, and show cutting horses on a national level. Ended up being women's ranch rodeo reserve world champion, U.S. cutting horse reserve world champion. I trained horses for Rex Tillerson while he was Trump's first Secretary of State back in 2016. And I'm here because I see the issues, I see the corruption, and I want to get this fixed. I love my country. I love the people of Georgia, and I just want to do what's right. You know, my grandfather was the youngest person ever signed on to the FBI, and he always ingrained it in me. You do what's right no matter what the cost. And I think that is what our government needs right now. We need people that will stand up with that strength and conviction and just say, no more. No more.
So, Jackie, you got 17 Republicans running in that district. You're concerned that they will dilute each other's support, and that maybe this flagrantly red seat would end up in blue hands. That could be a disaster. Is the special election a free for all, or does everyone win and the last person standing get the election? But somebody's got to win by 50% plus one, right?
Right.
So we're
That's
probably headed
probably
to a runoff.
Yeah. So with 21 candidates on the ballot, I would love to take a bet if someone would take it. I guarantee you there's going to be a runoff on April 7th. So someone take that bet. I want to make some money here.
And then they have to turn around and run again for the full term.
Right.
Yes, they have to. In fact, before the special election on March 10th, they're going to have to qualify for the primary so it's like they have to turn around. It's crazy. It's a lot of craziness, but I will tell you, the GOP volunteers, boots on the ground, are working really hard. We're working really hard. We're going to, actually the 14th district Republican Party is putting on 3 candidate forums, the first of which is January 31st. And we're going to invite all the candidates, all the Republican candidates, of course, we're not crazy. And we're going to give them a chance to let people, hear from them. And at the end of that forum, we're going to have a straw poll, and whoever gets the top 8 candidates who win that, who get the top amount of the straw poll, will be going to the next one, which will be February 12th. in Dalton. And then whoever wins that one, the top 3 are going to do a forum in Walker County. So I invite everybody to follow the 14th District GOP of Georgia on our Facebook page, and to get all the dates. We're keeping it super factual and informative, and talking about the chairman and things like that. I can tell you that Josh supporters and David Cross supporters and everybody, we are all working together in the 14th district to make sure Republican stays in this seat. So I think all I'm seeing is people locking arms and working together, and I'm proud to be leading them.
Well, I think if anybody can manage that complexity, it might just well be you, Jackie. So you keep fighting, and thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you.
I get the political reality of 17 Republican candidates, but for me, the more participation, the better. I am so excited to see people like Reagan Box running. And I'm also happy that Colton Moore, who I think is Marjorie Taylor Greene in a man's body, he's fearless, and he's really taken on the power structure. I admire that. And Reagan, you're out there fighting the good fight too. So I hope I wish you all well. And thank you, Peaches, for letting me be a part of the program today.
You did great.
Well, I had a great time with you lovely ladies, and you're patriots, and we don't always agree on everything, but we do agree on loving the flag in this country.
Yes.
And that's what it's all about. So keep
John,
up the
why
good
don't
work.
you announce, in closing, why don't you announce when your show normally is and how they can view it?
Yes.
Well, thank you for that. I'm never ashamed to engage in shameless self-promotion every Saturday and Sunday from noon to 2 on the John Fredericks Radio Network. We also are on cdm.press, and you can watch us on social media on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, X, and Getter. Just hit the live button and look for John Gordon Truth. And if you love me or hate me, you can write me at johngordontruth@gmail.com. And all of our past episodes are on johngordon.tv. That's our time.